It's nights like this in a relatively, you know, relatively good snowstorm. One of the things that I think put me towards a trajectory of being a painter, or well, an artist, but a painter in particular, was this. Ever since I was a kid, there was this painting that my father, when he was a kid, obsessed over. It was by the Canadian artist who came a little bit before the Group of Seven, who was an impressionist that ended up working with Monet in France, and who really, many people don't know this, taught the Group of Seven a lot of details and techniques from the European continent. William Blair-Bruce, he had this painting that is commonly referred to as, I believe, Lost in the Barrens, or the Spirit of the Explorer, something of that nature. And it was a painting of, and I said this on Donald Kemp's American Zarathustra channel once, it was a painting of an explorer in the Arctic who encounters what they called the snow phantom, which I believe was a soul of another famous explorer. And this painting had this ghostly glaze of an explorer in the Arctic walking on, and it terrified this Arctic sojourn that was sort of crawling in the snow. And he said that when he went to the Hamilton Gallery with his mother, my grandmother, my father said, I never knew. He said that the light that the studio cast, sorry, the light that the gallery cast on it was so surreal and so dramatic that immediately he had to stay there for minutes, for 10 minutes at least, to look at this one painting. And there's very few aesthetic moments like that, especially when you're a young kid. I think I remember when I first, and it was only many years later to become an artist that I was very similar to, at least in terms of the way I approach painting. Of course, you could never be, as good. But I remember when I was in, I believe, grade 5, I saw The Crying Man and the Sunflower Still Life by Van Gogh. And it was many years later that I only fully appreciate Van Gogh and his work. But William Blair-Bruce's painting, he said when he was a kid, he interpreted it as an explorer who is about to die in the Arctic, and his soul carries on. And I always remember that. I always thought that was something profound. And it was funny because the way I approach even a lot of different subject matters in terms of the work of art, I think is, in a way, a lineage of my father's original aesthetic experience in terms of maybe not that direct subject matter, but looking at the sort of ghosts of our world, in a sense, looking at these sort of hidden relations that cross into the metaphysical, whether that makes me a symbolist, painter, or whatever. I mean, I don't think I've explored those, those quatrains of art nearly enough to be considered a symbolist or what have you. But I think I just wanted to briefly talk about that because this sort of weather always provokes that type of thinking in me. And I think that when it comes to the work of art, there has to be some things that I believe de Kooning said that he slips into the painting. He's like, I'm always slipping into it. Meaning that he's jotting around the canvas. He's sort of pinpointing different things. He's seeing relations that are 1 second, gone a moment. Sort of like when you sort of wake up from a dream, right? You are in the realm of the dream still, but you have this very liminality between conscious life and the dream. And I think great art always does that, as cliched, as that sounds, right? But I think that's what my old man saw many years ago when he first encountered that painting by William Blair-Bruce. He slipped into a fantasy. And I believe I also wrote about it back in my WordPress days. I wrote about this painting and that encounter my old man had. But there's always something to slip into, I think, when it comes to the work of art. And that is that space between dreams and between what is real and between these hidden relations between, these hidden relations that juxtapose things that slip in and out, that aren't as systematic as philosophy or science or any sort of general cultural output. I think that's what really truly makes the work of art. It makes a world. It is a letting be, a clearing, a wu-wei. Of course, I'm reverting back to, my university days where I studied Taoist painting for a long time, but because I had a Chinese philosophy teacher who was a Heideggerian, so of course I have to think of it in those terms. But I just wanted to quickly comment on how, this weather made me feel. And I was thinking back to when my old man, from a very early age, I remember hearing about that story. And lo and behold, instead of it becoming just another story that my old man likes to tell when he was a kid or when he was younger, that became a huge linchpin for the most, I think, fundamental part of my life, which is the work of art. So, as always, like, share, subscribe, donate if you must. I will come out with new things like the website, seller's website, and Ko-Fi, all that good stuff. But it's very late at night, so God bless. Well, it's late at night for recording. So God bless. Goodbye. And wait, let me do the thing. Too sweet.